I'm James. Thanks for checking into the Pitstop. This is our recap for Amazing Race, season 34, episode 4, Everyone's an Artist. We have a very special guest joining us for today's recap. She is a dear friend of mine. Well, ours now, but I've known Laura longer. So, like, that's the OG. So let's go ahead and bring in Laura Pierson, winner of season 26.
I'm literally laughing because when you said your dear friend, I was like, wait, what about Will?
I'm the OG. Let's be real.
Okay, well, I love you both the same. And I hope you don't give everybody that introduction, because if you do, I don't feel as special.
No, we do not. We do not. Okay. We're very excited to have you to talk about this episode, and also because I know people are excited to see you and hear about how you've been doing since your season of the race. We already have people saying Queen Laura. Hype.
Oh, yeah.
Laura, what year was season 26? When did y'all film?
You know, I really hate saying how long ago it was because I actually did the math recently, and it's coming up on 8 years. Wow. I think if I did the math, it's either 7 or 8 years, which is so crazy to me.
Oh my God.
Wow, time is flying by.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Now we're on season 34. So many seasons.
It's so crazy, and it just shows the longevity of the show. And it's just wild because I'm like, oh no, people don't remember my season. They don't care about me. And then I'll get such nice messages and DMs. I'm like, that show, it has such heart to it.
Yeah. And you're so good, I think, like, engaging with fans of the show. I always see you like share people's messages, and I know that Amazing Race fans are such loyal fans, so it's really cool that they continue to reach out to so many of us, and you just are really good at interacting with the fans of Amazing Race.
Oh, thanks, honey.
Of course. Well, I want to talk about how we know each other. I mean, I think 8 years actually makes sense because I think that was 2015 when you and I first met. And I'm sure people who watch our recap know that I used to recap Amazing Race on AfterBuzz TV, and I did it for so many seasons. And one of them being season 26. And my co-hosts Jessica and Justin and I, we did a little fantasy draft. And I think we're on Jessica's team, right?
I wasn't on yours. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I think I was.
How dare you?
I know I had Team Truck Stop Love on my team.
They're great too.
So you watched our recap. You were so active and like engaging with us, and eventually you came on to the show. Like you came on after you had won with Tyler to talk about your experience, and you found this picture and sent it to me recently, and I thought it was so funny and so cute, and like it's just been so long since we took this photo. Where is it? Here we go. This is the photo.
Wow, my God.
I love it. Yeah, it's wild. That was actually the day we were doing press. We were just on ET. We were on Entertainment Tonight, and then you called me and you said, "Do you want to come and recap the episode with us on AfterBuzz?" So Tyler and I were together. We're like, let's do it. It was so much fun.
How funny. James, look at your little red bandana.
Well, because we wanted, so our thing was like, let's dress like we each had a team in the final. So you had Justin's team was Blair and Haley. So he's wearing scrubs. Okay. And I was team Truck Stop Love. So I actually bought their merch and I wore the bandana. Cute. And then Jessica, just looking as beautiful as Laura, just like team SoCal.
Love it. It's so fun. I have to show one photo of, so this was the party before our finale party. And I just want to thank you both for basically taking over. This is the photo, okay? So there I am. It's my party, and Jenny Wu and Will and James, gorgeous, beautiful faces front and center. I love that.
We are like crouching, but we're so far forward that we look huge.
It's so we look like
it just looks like it was your party, which I love.
Oh God, it was a full circle moment though for me, especially, and it's something that I like think of often is like, I ended up working for you, Laura, and we worked together for a while. And I remember when I got the call that I was going to be on Amazing Race, like you were there that day and I cried and you were just so excited for me and so supportive. And I just, full circle moment. Life is weird. Life is so weird.
But not only did you get on the show, y'all won. Like, that's what's so crazy about it is I was like, okay, babe, like, just try and do really good. Like, don't be the first one out. Like, try and make it to the middle. Like, if you make it to finale, great. I had no idea that you both won. I was told that you didn't from like an insider from the show. So I'm like, oh gosh, that would have been so cool. And then when you actually did win, I mean, it's incredible.
It's so weird.
Life is so weird.
It's so weird.
But it's also very beautiful at the same time.
It's so exciting.
It is. It's so exciting.
So let's talk about episode 4 of this season. So far, what are your thoughts on the season, Laura? And like, what do you think of the cast of teams?
So I love this season. I mean, I love every season. It's hard because I like all of the teams. I don't really see the villains per se. Like, I think that there's certain people throughout the years you watch and you're just like, I really don't like those people. Like, I don't really want to meet them at the reality events. I'm not sure that I'm going to even like them. Like, I have to say, everybody from this season is so great. Obviously, as we get into the episode, we'll talk about the one person that I think kind of rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way, as well as Phil and probably the majority of the crew by wanting to quit. Right. But we'll get there. But no, I love it. I love this show. I love the season. You know, it's just so fun.
Yeah, and I think they're really good at reinventing the show without ever steering away from the format. And I think that's why it's so successful. Like, especially with this, there's now 12 teams, which we've seen before, but like 12 teams from the jump. And then we also have no non-eliminations. So you know that it's going to be a lot more competitive, a lot more at stake. You don't want to get last. And then I think the starting of this season as the scramble with such a unique twist and take on the race that I love the scramble, and I'm pretty sure we'll see it on future seasons.
Now a mega leg again.
Oh, another mega leg. I know. And that's what brings us to episode 4.
Yeah, I was going to say a mega leg is so wild. I kind of feel like we had a bit of a mega leg in Germany because we kept going. We're doing challenges and roadblocks and then detours and then additional challenges. It was so wild that I feel like that was pretty much our mega leg, but I don't think the viewer understands how exhausting that is. After you've been traveling, you're on no sleep, your diet's completely off, you're hungry, you're thirsty. I mean, and then you don't want to be eliminated.
No. This one, we were told by Derek and Claire, I think that it was like at least 12 hours.
Long day.
Which is insane. Because our mega leg for when we were in India
like 8
was
to 9.
Like, no, it was like 6 to 8. It was not near as long as
it
what
felt
they
like
had
an
to
eternity.
do. I mean, it felt long, but it wasn't 12 hours.
No.
Yeah, 12 hours is wild. But I do have to say the one thing with this season, as well as the last season, is that they're on the charter plane.
Yeah.
Like for us, you didn't have Big Phil, correct?
No.
Yeah, like that is a whole nother challenge. The fact that we had to go from planes and, you know, being squished in a middle seat to competing, or they're on Big Phil where they're able to relax more. I mean,
and all the seats on Big Phil look like first class seats.
Exactly.
Like they look spacious, they look comfortable. And I don't think that they really have long haul flights because they're pretty much just in Europe. Where like those long haul flights, like our 14-hour flight and then getting off and racing, it's very exhausting. Very exhausting.
Yeah. And the time change of like gaining a day, losing a day, you're 12 hours ahead. Now you're in tomorrow. I mean, that alone just makes people a little wacky.
Yeah, a little loopy. Your brain turns to jello. So this episode starts off where the last week's episode ended. So it's still the mega leg. We see Glenda and Lumumba still doing the roadblock all the other teams have already left. So things start off like looking like they're not going to go well for Glenda and Lumumba. Like you think, how are they going to catch up to all the other teams who seem like they're already driving to Florence from Bologna? But, you know, I think what I really appreciate about this new era, if you will, of the race, because it's post-COVID, so there's a lot more, I would say, self-driving than we've seen in seasons prior. There's some navigational issues that can throw teams off, which I think what really helped Glenda and Lumumba kind of slip ahead of certain teams.
You would think by now it's like 4 that the knowing your directions, knowing where you're going, maybe getting a little help to know where you're going, finding a map would be part of people's gameplay. But people are still getting lost. Every single episode, at least 1 or 2 teams have gotten lost. Which is like, come on, people, we're 4 episodes in, let's figure it out.
And they're also given maps. They're given maps, but I don't think they had maps going to Florence though. That's what I think I heard.
I just cannot believe people are able to drive on the Amazing Race. I mean, I was telling you both last night how I didn't know how to drive stick. I took 1 day 4-hour class. So I was like banking on the fact that my partner would know how to drive stick. Tyler had never driven stick before. He watched on YouTubes and practiced with cans, soup cans. That's how he, yes, soup cans.
How do you even do that?
I don't even know it was a thing. But like to the point of it, it's so dangerous for the crew. And as I was watching this episode, I was like, oh my God, none of these people know how to drive stick. I almost feel like, yes, we all, I mean, I hate to say we all kind of lying like, oh yeah, I know how to drive stick. I've been doing it since I was 15 years old. But literally, I think that they should test people before they go on the race to make sure that they actually know. Because that's like wildly dangerous.
I agree. I can definitely get a little sticky, a little dangerous. But then I think the fans would be sad because they always love to criticize teams who can't drive stick. They're always so vocal about, oh, if you go on Amazing Race, you need to know how to drive stick. And I feel like if you don't have that, then viewers are going to be like, well, everyone just knows how to drive stick. So where's the self-driving drama?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, watching the twins, holy moly. I was like, someone please help them. Help those girls out. And that was wild.
I agree. I was always so concerned about safety when I was driving. I mean, at least we only had 1 or 2 self-drives, but like, how are you going to keep these people safe if you don't know how to drive a stick?
I do like that we're seeing a lot more self-drive because I think when teams are in the car together, you get a little bit more story elements about their relationship, their dynamic, what they're thinking about the other teams that are racing with them. So we see the twins while they're driving talking about how like their biggest competition is Marcus and Michael. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Like Marcus and Michael, from the moment they left leg 2, when they were in first place, kind of maintained a lead even up through this part of the mega leg. So I liked hearing that they have like another team that they're keeping an eye on. You know, you hear how Derek and Claire's confidence was a little shaken by this mega leg, but they're, you know, they still trust in each other and they're going to lean on, you know, each other and trust that they know what they're doing more. And so I like these little moments because you get that conversation that helps drive story a little bit.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was interesting hearing Dom and Rich talk because we obviously met them. I don't know if you both met them before that, but we met them a couple weeks ago. And they're so lovely. They're so inspiring and motivational. But to hear her struggle just proves how difficult the race is. But I love how Rich supported her. But in the car, you know,
literally, sorry. Yeah. No. It's like supporting your partner on the race is one of the most important things, because if you can't get support from somewhere, like you're just going to go down this rabbit hole of just constantly being down on yourself, getting frustrated. So I loved watching him, even when he was meditating in this episode
at the roadblock
while she was doing it. But like, he's so supportive of her, and she is of him as well. And I love watching that.
Real quick, we actually have Molly from this season in the chat. She's talking about, because I know you were talking about them driving, Laura. She said that was definitely a day. She also only had 4 hours of practice and lessons, but eventually she got the hang of it. Car change up is difficult. Yeah, this stick shift. That's what they'll
Listen, like I was learning how to drive on streets where they were pretty empty. So I was like, oh yeah, I got this. I'll be fine on the race. You get out there. I mean, you guys saw I got my car stuck in Germany over the sidewalk, couldn't figure out what to do. So
well, especially, and we talked about this for the last episode, but every country's stick shift system is going to be different. And so like it's just constantly changing with everywhere you go. So you have to relearn every day almost.
Yeah, and knowing that like some of the stick shifts you have to press down to be able to move it into reverse, like what?
And we were even saying, I think it was to Derek and Claire recently, like trying to find someone who owns a stick just to practice before you leave is so difficult. We even went to like used car lots. We went to car dealerships pretending to be interested in a stick shift car. So hard to find. So we eventually had to do like a driver's training class on this like beat up vintage, like from the 60s European stick shift. And that did not help because the feel of it was so different when we actually got on the race. It like went out the window. Yes. Like,
if you both are so smart, I love that you did that. I was like, I'm just going to pay someone to teach me how to do this. And hopefully I win the race. Because if I did not win the race, it would have cost me money to be on the race with like the new clothes, the bag, taking time off of work, the stick shift driving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was really smart that you both thought of that.
Molly says, love you, Laura.
Oh, love you, Molly. Can't wait to meet you.
No. So teams finally arrive in Florence. Florence looks stunning. Beautiful. Like it was a beautiful backdrop for a leg. Got us excited because we happen to be going to Italy in 2 weeks, and Florence is one of the destinations we will be visiting. So I'm looking forward to that. But Florence was just beautiful for this leg of the race. And then we have our first roadblock, our second roadblock of the mega leg, but obviously the first for this episode. So for this roadblock, one team member had to essentially chip away at this statue and had to use provided tools to remove the plaster surrounding the sculpture before receiving their next clue. Also, one team member, regardless of who performed the first roadblock, so people could have done it twice. Mm-hmm. And that was a question we got.
Did it twice.
I did it twice on our mega leg. So like, it's kind of nice to just knock two out back to back. Yeah. Laura, for this roadblock, if like you and Tyler were racing, this was on season 26, who do you think out of the two of you would have ended up doing this roadblock?
What's so wild that Tyler and I talked about after the race is that somehow he got every mental challenge and I got every physical challenge. So really like the really tough physical things that he probably should have done, I did, because you get a portion, you get a clue. You don't even know what you're going to be doing. You want a chiseled body. I'd be like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. I'll try that. Not knowing that it was actually this. But I think the thing that we saw in this roadblock was just how mentally challenging someone can be that you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Because just looking at that, it looked like it was going to be so difficult. And I was like, how is anybody going to be able to do this? And you saw Dom literally want to take a 4-hour penalty. 4 hours, that's wild.
That would essentially put you out of the race, especially because of how many teams were at this roadblock together. If no other teams were around, it's still risky, but like because they're all there, you know no one's going to fall 4 hours behind you. So you automatically are going to accept being the last team to check in.
Well, one thing about this roadblock that I didn't really love is that you could see everybody doing the chiseling. And it was not beneficial for Dom to come in and see everybody's after they had already removed all of that block or whatever. Right. So all these other teams are coming in. And so the first person who has to figure it out on their own is at a disadvantage because everybody's just going to see what they're doing and pick it up, which we saw happen. So I wish they would have separated people like in the garden, like kind of all over the place so that you couldn't see somebody else, because I wanted to see other teams struggle to figure out, oh my God, am I going to have to create this sculpture? But we only saw it with the first team, and then the last team kind of have that struggle of like, do I really have to make
You're right.
this?
Seeing each other, you kind of learn from what other teams are doing.
Right. And so you just walk in, you see somebody chiseling, and it's all just falling off. So I'm like, oh, all I have to do is just take it off. So that was the one thing I didn't love about the roadblock.
Funny, not funny, but thinking about everybody having a mental breakdown in their own spot, like, I don't know. That's the first thing that I would think of is like, you would see everybody literally losing their marbles as they think that they have to do it until they figure out like, okay, it's a little. But what I thought was interesting, I heard Derek say, I think it was on their recap, that he took off the ear and he didn't know that he could just reattach the ear. So he built a new ear. Which is like, also, if you're in your own area, you don't see that someone else, knocked off half the forehead and like put it back on. So that could have also added to the drama.
That's funny. All the little holes that people were making in their statues. I think it was Sharik. She had this huge hole where you could see the styrofoam inside of the statue.
Molly says that Michael and Emily could actually see the uniform line across all the blocks, but obviously because they weren't doing the roadblock, they couldn't see it. They couldn't say anything. But I mean, honestly, like, mad props to Molly though, because Molly figured this out so quickly, how to do it and how to approach this roadblock, and that totally helped them kind of maintain a lead. So that was brilliant on her part. But our first, like, I would say, meltdown of the episode came to Dom and Rich. We did talk a little bit about how supportive Rich was of Dom during this moment, but also Dom even humoring the idea of like, let's just take a 4-hour penalty. But, I think it really does speak volumes to the relationship that these two have established. She trusted in Rich enough to really build her up. Yeah. She knew what she needed in that moment. He knew exactly what she needed in that moment to get her head focused, recentered, back into the roadblock. So much so that Dom went back and read the clue to figure out, oh, I don't actually have to make this identical. It's already underneath the plaster. So, one thing with the viewers of the show, they're so quick to like criticize the mistakes racers make. So all they're focusing on is like, oh, Dom, she wanted to give up and take the penalty, or like she was just not doing well at this roadblock, but like failing to remember she read the clue. Yeah. She went back and read the clue, and that's what helped her actually continue through and not give up on the roadblock. So
I don't fault people for like messing up on the race, obviously, because we've all messed up at least once on the race. But I think people just are so quick to be like, she gave up, she wanted to quit. But like the whole process of like having those thoughts, having those emotions, making the decision, reading the clue, and then accomplishing it. That's a beautiful arc, like a competitor to say that they had a really tough moment and then they actually got it done. Like they accomplished their goal, their task.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people can learn from Rich and the way that he handled it. He said to her, baby, just take 15 minutes. Just do it for 15 minutes. And if you can't do it, we will take the 4-hour penalty. It was like, he didn't yell at her. They didn't argue. It was so much love and respect that it's like, okay, that's couples goals right there.
Yeah. Agreed. I and especially on their 3rd anniversary together, like cute. It was just a beautiful moment that I love we saw between the two of these this team. So another little meltdown we saw was with Sharik. I mean, Sharik, I think at the start of this episode, she was very open. She had a very vulnerable moment in the car on the way to Florence, where she's talking about how their roadblock strategy so far has been working for them and that she hasn't really done one. Her dad has done all 3, and she has anxiety. And she talks about how she's very anxious about things in life in general. And I think we really saw that come out in this roadblock for her. And I have anxiety, and you don't realize until you're on the race, like how the race kind of affects that. And how pulls that out of you in different ways than I think you're used to experiencing at home. But with Sharik, I know what it's like to feel that pressure of doing like your first roadblock, because I was so scared to do a roadblock.
What was your first one?
My first one was Paraguay, when I had to build the cello.
Instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard because we all done it before and we know how stressful it is. We know that it is really like a lot to do any of these challenges, especially your first roadblock. There's like a fear you have to get over. My issue, not issue, but during the challenge, obviously we see her struggling and like going through it, and that's fine. But later on the episode, that's where I kind of get like confused.
Yeah.
But yeah, she definitely had a meltdown, and I get it, because those little details of like covering up holes and stuff, that's the weirdest part, because the judge obviously comes to look at it and blah blah blah, and they don't tell you what's wrong. They don't tell you that, like, these little bitty things need to be fixed, and so you have to like figure it out on your own, and that's also another very stressful thing to have to figure out too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think what my first roadblock was, but I was really scared because, as you know, I was doing the race with a complete stranger. So it's not like I could go to Tyler and be like, okay, baby, I'm freaking out. I'm so nervous. I need to, like, he'd be like, wait, what? What was your name again? Like, we just met each other. So, I mean, listen, the anxiety I had was sky high, but for some reason, it was so mind over matter for me on the race that I was like, okay, I'm really scared. I don't know what I'm doing. But what makes everybody else here that much smarter or better or stronger than me? Yes, of course, there's Olympians here that can run 5-minute miles. I'm not saying I could do that at all, but like, we're all here. We were handpicked.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to do it.
Yeah. And I think with Sharik, like, you know, they got to the roadblock fairly early before some of the other teams. And I think she had the right approach. Like, she knew what she had to do. She knew how to execute it. But I think what really starts to set in with that stress and the anxiety being triggered is when you see other teams leaving who came after you. Because then you start to think, what am I actually doing wrong? And she talks about this in her recap with her dad. So whoever's watching, Linton and Sharik actually did a recap about this episode. She talks about how she's a perfectionist. And I think with all those little scratches and all those little dents, like, she became fixated on all these flaws, trying to make it even more perfect, thinking that that's what she needed to do to actually get the clue and be done. But that, to me, is the biggest stress, I would say, with the roadblock, is when you're there before any other team, and then all the other teams who came after you start to leave before you.
Yeah, that's what happened to us in Germany when I had to sing Tyler a love song. I could not get it. I like could not get the song down. And then when I sang it, he said I was no Beyonce. The woman poured water on me. I mean, it was horrible. And I thought that we were never going to get out of there. So completely get it. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I think that, like, I wish that she had handled it differently.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
During the challenge, fine. Like that I get the stress. I get the issue. But yeah, later on.
She eventually gets it. She eventually gets
we all
it.
did. I don't know who. One thing I said the other day was, like, everything on the race is doable. And there's a reason why everything is doable. There's nothing that you can't do. No
Sometimes
matter who
it's
you
more
are,
simple than you realize.
You're 65, you're 21, like, everybody can do all of these things. It's completely doable. You just have to be patient with yourself. And, like, sometimes it's going to take 3 hours. Sometimes it's going to take 5 minutes. You just have to just keep going at it.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to say about Dom too, we interviewed Rich and Dom. So if y'all want to watch our exit interview with them, it's on our YouTube channel. But with Dom, why she was having an emotional moment for that is because she found, like, the parallels of chipping away at this statue and, like, finding the flaws and the imperfections and, like, things that were happening in her life. And she was just having this, like, moment where it was all coming to a head for her. And the way she explains it in our interview with her is so beautiful and so inspiring. I'm like, no wonder she's a motivational speaker. So I definitely encourage people to listen to it, because I loved her perspective on that roadblock and how deep that was for her.
I also want to commend Linton for supporting Sharik in that roadblock, because as a father, to see your kid kind of go through a struggle or be really down on themselves, that's got to be hard. But he was just so supportive of her and being very encouraging. So I really love seeing him being just a really great dad for his daughter.
Yeah, he was great. So we go, once teams complete the block, it's the detour of this episode. I thought this was kind of a fun detour. For this, they had to choose between Eye for Fashion, which was teams had to find 3 fashion shoots, memorize the outfits, then match outfit sketches, excuse me, with the locations of the shoots to receive their next clue. And then you have Window of Opportunity, where teams had to find 3 wine windows and pick up Tuscan soup, cured meats, and a biscotti, and then deliver them to an outdoor trattoria to receive their next clue. I loved both of them because as a viewer, we really got to see Florence. Like, again, this was such a beautiful backdrop for this leg, and we got to see so much of Florence. Laura, what do you think you and Tyler would have done?
So actually, this made me laugh because I watched the episode knowing that we were going to recap it. And James, this reminds me of when we worked together at the Universal Studios lot, and I used to make you do photo shoots with me all around. So you would be like, yes, queen, yes, and taking photos. And I'm like, how ironic is it that this is like a photo shoot when I would do the photo shoot, of course.
Yeah, that was so funny.
What about both of you?
I think we would have done the photos as well.
Hell yeah, we
just because sometimes when they do challenges where it's like find these locations, it's a little easier to get lost.
Yeah.
So I think I would have avoided that, but the photo shoots, of course.
Yeah.
But I did love Phil talking about the little windows in the wall, how those were when the plague, I think what he said. I don't remember what he said. That's how they would deliver food. As you go up to the window, you get your food so they don't spread any sickness. And then he tied it to COVID and how they became like a resurgence of these windows because people didn't want to get sick. So I thought that that was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting tie-in, and the state of the world was, yeah. I think we definitely would have done Eye for Fashion, because I think we're really good with details and paying attention to details, and I just think it would have been so much fun. Molly said she was so happy that the detour took them to the Duomo.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Literally so beautiful. So I think the challenging part of this is paying attention to the location, because they don't in the clues say anything about the backdrop. They only say something about what they're wearing. Pay attention to the details. So it would be really easy to forget
what's around,
everything that's around you, and kind of where they are for the photo shoots. And we obviously saw that with Marcus and Michael not paying attention to the locations. Emily and Molly, they paid attention to every detail.
And I feel like for a mega lag, Emily and Molly just felt so composed. Like, it just, with how long
everything felt easy for them.
So easy for them. Like,
I was going to say that they made that episode look really, really easy. Other than the driving part in the beginning, I'm like, they kind of ran a flawless leg.
Yeah.
Yep. They definitely did.
Especially earlier when they were in Bologna.
But I always want to say Bologna.
For the Ducati challenge, and she powered through that on the first try. And then also these two challenges with the chiseling and then the Eye for Fashion, literally first try. So easy. Yeah.
I was like, are they just easy challenges, or are they just really good racers? And they're really good racers. Like
they're their stride. And I just think that that's gonna serve them well long term. And I think they're just having fun together. And you hear them talk about making up for lost time. And I just think, what a better way to, like, this is just like the dream of a lifetime, and to be able to do that together to make up for that lost time is very special. And I think they are cherishing it so much, is just why they're doing so well.
And also, and I'm privileged to like be able to watch it.
Yeah.
Because it's so beautiful.
One thing I think we should point out about this detour, because it is, I would say, a pretty big criticism by viewers, and it has been since our season, but we saw Maddie and Quentin and also Lewis and Michelle team up for this detour. They both did the window of opportunity side of this. We see Abby and Will, though, kind of doing their own thing. And I think they've made it known to us watching from our homes that they're kind of running their own race. So Laura, I mean, as an Amazing Racer, as someone who's won, what are your thoughts on teams sort of helping other teams on the Amazing Race?
I don't think you do it all the time, but I think it's totally fine to do. I mean, I had no problem asking other teams, like, oh, do you know which one it is? Or like, do you know what I do here? And the majority of the time they would tell you, because they're a little uncomfortable and they're going to look like an ass on TV if they don't tell you. So no, I have no problem with that. I just don't want to see it too much, because then I feel like you're no longer running the race for yourself and your partner. You're running it with a group, and that's not what the race is. But I think every now and then, sure.
Yeah.
I think especially when you know you're either in the middle or in the top of the pack, I think it's so beneficial to do things like this where you're trying to get directions together. You follow each other, because then you know that you're staying with another team and you can keep that lead that you have on other teams. If you're in the back, like, very rarely should you ever work with another team or help another team, because they could legitimately pass you on your way to the pit stop because you're in the back of the pack. So I always think it's okay, especially if you're like, you know that you're gonna be in the middle.
Like Matt and Ashley, Tyler and I in Africa ran a lake together, and we were first and second place the whole time. It made the leg so much fun, because we ran a lake with someone else like that, and those are lasting memories. Like, not only are we doing the race for the experience, but you're also meeting fascinating people you would never meet otherwise. I mean, I think all of us would meet each other otherwise because we're very similar and we work in the same industries and stuff. But I think so many of the people you would never meet.
No. Yeah. Or you'd never have the opportunity to.
Yeah. I did love how this part of the episode was edited, though, because it was, a nice contrast to see different approaches to the race. You see these two teams working together while at the same time, Abby and Will are running by them saying, we're going to do our own thing. So it's nice. I think all is fair in Amazing Race, unless it's written in the rules that you can't do it. So I love seeing teams helping each other, but you're right. It's always knowing when to help and when not to help and cut your losses.
What you said, Laura, about teams would help you, give you answers to your questions or whatever. That always happened to us, but we were like, we never gave information.
Oh, I never gave information because you go places where you're like, oh, I don't know. I think it's over there. But then I would ask them and they would tell me, so what's the answer here? What do I do?
Yeah. If someone's willing to give you help or give you an answer,
sure,
you're not going to say no. You're not going to say no. But
I'm not going to give you the answer.
No, hell no.
I'm not going to give you anything. I want you to give me everything. That's why we're winners.
I loved this detour again. It was fun to watch. Great backdrop for the episode. But then we have our pit stop teams. Well, no, this is when we start to see more of a meltdown with Shariq, though. Shariq, she was just spent, done. You hear her complaining to her dad that she was just ready to go back to Brooklyn. She just was not having fun anymore. And you really got to see how much the mega leg was wearing down on her. But I feel like we haven't seen that kind of reaction from a team in a while.
Yeah.
Did you watch their video?
Not the full thing, but I saw bits and pieces.
I haven't watched it either.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's kind of like when at the end of our Philippines leg, when D'Angelo was like, I could have blah, 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 whatever. He was just really upset. Being that tired, exhausted, that long of a day can make you say and do things that you normally wouldn't do in your daily life. It can make you just really, really worked up. So I get it, but I also like there's so many people who want to be on the race. There's so many people who would love the opportunity. So I think just the constant wanting to go home was really hard to watch, especially as somebody who's done the race and
How special the experience is.
totally.
I mean,
it's hard. Yeah, it was just hard to watch.
yeah, like Tyler and I, we were so excited for race day. I mean, we would wake up early, we would hang out, we would hype each other up. Like being on the race is the most incredible experience you can ever have. In fact, I was having a conversation with Bertram, who's the executive producer and co-creator, while we were in Africa. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to bring my family here to camp. And he's like, no. What we do with you, you can never recreate because we are the only people that can do this. Like you can't come and camp here in Africa. So I think like that's the frustrating thing is that she's given this incredible opportunity. And to hear someone constantly be like, oh, I want to go home. It's upsetting, especially because like Phil's very close with his daughter. So I'm sure like he would love to have his daughter run the race with him. I mean, if he wasn't the host or whatever it is, or even be there working on the show. I know she works on Tough as Nails with him. So I'm sure also in a certain way, he's kind of like, well, I can't believe that you just wanted to give up. But I don't condone all the people that are bullying her online. That is so wrong. No. Like, don't do that. We have no idea what goes on in other people's minds and heads and what she was actually going through. So, but it's just putting myself in this situation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I get having anxiety on the race. I totally get having weak moments or meltdowns on the race. It's a hard show that you don't understand until you do it. But then when you start saying those things, I think that's what offends. That's what offends.
I don't want
to
be here anymore.
Sure, have your moments and like work through what you need to work through. But when you start saying those things, viewers who love this show, I think just start to take that so personal.
Tell me how hard it is. Tell me what you're frustrated with. Like, tell me all those things.
What are you working through? Yeah.
You
want to see those real human moments.
It's the 0 to 100 of like, that's frustrating to, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And also, like, we all are very close with our families. So right before she had her meltdown, it was interesting. I was thinking how amazing it is that she can run the race with her dad. Like, I didn't get to run the race with my dad, but that is an incredible memory that someone will cherish forever. And then literally 10 minutes later, she's talking about going home. And her dad the whole time was just trying to be supportive and understand where she was coming from. But I think that was the other hard thing about it.
This comment that just popped up talks about how like having a mental health breakdown obviously translates different on television because you're editing it to produce a great television show. And so they can manipulate the things that she says to match the narrative that they want for the episode. I totally get that. So yeah, I mean, you're putting yourself in one of the most vulnerable positions to be on national television. And then to go through that on national TV, it's hard.
Yeah.
Because her reality is obviously probably a little different than what we see on the show.
So, and my biggest argument where like I want to give her a little bit of praise because I think that if she really didn't want to be there, I think she would have quit when Phil gave her the option. If she was really that spent and like really that over the experience, I think she would have said, I'm done, I'm walking. But she didn't. Like Phil laid it out for her. Like, you're doing this with your dad. Like, do you want to keep racing? And she's like, yeah, I want to keep racing with my dad. Now it's, what are we going to see come after this? Are we going to continue to see that attitude and that behavior? Are we going to see a redemption arc with Sharik where she starts to embrace, like, I'm happy to be here with my dad. I'm happy to have this experience with him. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hopeful that we'll see that.
He's having so much fun.
Yes.
Her dad is living. He is just enjoying it. He's doing all those challenges. He did the one where they had to deliver those things by himself pretty much. Like, he's just having a great time. He's being very patient. And he obviously wants to be there. So he's living his life.
And they've done a great job. Like, on the first leg, they got 5th. On the second leg, they got 4th. So, like, she just needs to get her head back in the race. And I'm hoping that we see that.
Yeah, I agree.
So for the pit stop, here's the placements for this episode. Our girls, Emily and Molly, getting first place. Marcus and Michael, second place. And then getting third place was Abby and Will. I always love seeing Abby's enthusiasm for just everything with the race. Lewis and Michelle, Quentin and Maddie getting fourth and fifth. Obviously, they helped each other on the detour. Aubrey and David getting sixth. Then we have seventh, Derek and Claire. They're still in it. And then we have Glenda Lamumba, 8. I think she really thought they were out of it. Linton and Shriek with 9th place. And then unfortunately for Rich and Dom, they were the last team to arrive and they were sent home and on their 3rd anniversary. But when we talked to them on our exit interview with them, we said, you know what Phil said at the end is so spot on. You know, yes, it's your 3rd anniversary and yes, you're being eliminated, but at the end of the day, like you got through this experience together and you're leaving together.
Yeah.
So I appreciate Rich and Dom and their journey on the race, and I'm sad to see them go.
I wonder if Linton and Sharik thought that they were in last place, and that's also another reason why she probably was frustrated.
Like a defensive mechanism.
It was like a defense mechanism to really I want to quit because I don't want to be eliminated type of thing.
It's almost like when you're like, you know, your man is about to break up with you or like your girlfriend, you're like, I don't like him anyways.
Oh my God, that's
him.
a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe that's what it is.
I for the placements, I'm really proud of Abby and Will because they've been kind of moving up every episode. They're fun to watch. She's obviously so
living out the dream of her life.
But to see them kind of do better is fun. I think it's great.
Okay, so for next week,
hold on, Derek and Claire, first place in the first episode, and now 7th place. Come on.
No, isn't that crazy how that happens? It's so wild. I love Derek and Claire too. They're like, gosh, they both just have such good personalities. They're so smart. They're having fun. I love them as a couple.
Yeah, they're fun and. Yeah, I would like to keep seeing them in the race. So
yeah,
Emily and Molly, I want them to keep getting
first place.
I love them too.
Okay, so next week on The Amazing Race, I'm really excited for this episode because it's the first time the race has gone to Jordan, which looks incredible. On the next episode, teams travel to the Kingdom of Jordan, and they will have to ride a train and experience a scene reminiscent of the 1963 Oscar-winning film Lawrence of Arabia, search the Wadi Rum Desert, and visit the ancient city of Petra. I cannot wait for this episde.
I'm jealous.
I'm so cool. Jealous.
It looks straight out of a movie. It doesn't even look real.
No.
That's so... The contrast of like being in Florence with like greenery and colorful buildings to
desert,
complete sand and that beautiful like light orange kind of tan color of the entire backdrop. So beautiful.
So epic. So epic.
I'm jealous because we wanted to go to Africa on our season. Never happened. So I'm looking forward to the next episode. Do we have any predictions on what we think might happen?
Sweat. That's all I know.
I saw on like one of the fan accounts that like everyone gets lost. I guess like there were people that were there in Jordan that realized that the Amazing Racers were there and recording. And literally you just see like the chaos of like the cameramen. And that's something that I think people forget is the crew is incredible. They are running with the racers, and not only are they running with them, but they're carrying audio gear and cameras and keeping up with everybody. But I feel like people are going to get lost.
One thing I think people don't know is that a lot of the times when you find a map, you use a map, it's usually in that country's language. So it's not, you don't get like this English friendly map. You get whatever exists and whatever the language is of the country you're in. So that makes it 10 times harder to kind of get anywhere. Europe is sometimes easier because I think a lot of people do speak French, German, you can kind of get around, especially, or if you speak Spanish too, you can kind of pick up on Italian too. But when you go to like a Middle East country or even Africa or Southeast Asia, those aren't commonly spoken languages, or you don't have the opportunity to learn those in school. So it becomes a little bit more challenging when you're in other places.
But also it's like, how often do we use maps? Like I use the one on my phone that tells me where to go, but I'm not looking at a paper map. So all of a sudden it's like, it's a foreign object to us while we're in a foreign country trying to figure out where to go. It's not very helpful.
But I'm excited. I love Petra, so I'm excited to see it on the race.
Well, that I think pretty much covers our recap for episode 4. Laura, thank you for joining us. Thank you for talking about it with us. Is there anything you would like to say before we wrap things up?
No, thank you so much for having me. I love you both so much, my super freaky girls.
Laura, where can everyone find you on social media?
On Instagram at LP Bunny, and then my Twitter I think is Laura_Pierson.
Yeah,
but I don't really tweet too much. I got to get better at
it. I hate Twitter.
Well, thank you everyone for watching and engaging in the live chat. We'll obviously be back next week for episode 5, and we hope that you have a great week in the meantime. We'll see y'all for our next recap.
Bye everybody.
Bye y'all. Let me X out of this now.